Lecture I am going to introduce you to engineering data application, or say engineering data manager. So this particular engineering data manager, like any other components, it can be accessed in a standalone mode, or otherwise you can also get this particular engineering data as a part of an analysis system. So what is engineering data? Engineering data is nothing but a software component with which you are going to manage all the material properties and all the materials that are available for your analysis or simulation project. So in order to access engineering data, you need to double click on this engineering cell. Once you double click on the engineering cell, engineering data will open, or engineering data module will open. You have different toolboxes that are present on the left side of your screen, and then you have different windows that are present here. So the first one is the outline of schematic. This is the properties of the outline row, this is the table of properties, and this is the chat. So here in this particular outline of schematic, the materials that are right now available for the present project will be shown. By default, what happens inside ANSYS Workbench, structural steel is the material that is always defined as a default. So if you just open ANSYS Workbench, if you don't define any other material, what happens when you are performing analysis, that parts will be assigned with a structural steel by default. So here in this particular group, you are going to see what are all the materials that are available for the current analysis. Right now, as we can see, only structural steel is available for our current analysis. Then coming to this one, this shows the properties of whatever material that we have selected here. It is going to be displayed here. For example, if I select, if I add another material by just clicking here and say giving a name Rakesh, and I just select this particular material, what happens? The properties which I have defined for this particular material will be shown here in the properties of outline. For example, if I select the structural steel, whatever the properties I have defined for structural steel will be shown here. Then in this particular table of properties window, we are going to see what are the different properties that are given in the form of a table. So for example, let us come to this alternating stress, mean stress. So this is generally defined for fatigue analysis, which we doesn't come into in this particular course. So what happens, see here, as the number of cycles are changing, the alternating stress value is going to change. So if there is any necessary for me to define my properties to the material in such sort of fashion, I can use this table of properties group, and once I use this table of properties group, I can see this particular table in the form of a graph in this particular group. Now we are going to see what are all the toolbars. So what happens is that these toolbox are a combination of different tools which helps us to define different properties for different sorts of materials. For example, let us say static analysis, the basic properties you are going to define are the Young's modulus and Poisson's ratio. So in order to define Young's modulus and Poisson's ratio, these particular tools are available under linear elastic group. Likewise, if you want to give the failure criteria to isotropic materials, then you need to go to the strength group and you need to select the material property. So in order to use this engineering data manager effectively and to perform simulations effectively, also you should be having knowledge on basic knowledge on SOM and materials, and what are the different material properties, what are the different material models that can be used for the analysis. So right now we have seen a basic introduction to ANSYS Workbench Engineering Data Manager, or say engineering data module. In the next lecture, we are going to see how to add a custom material and how to add properties to our custom material from the available toolbox properties inside Engineering Data Manager in ANSYS Workbench. Thank you. We are going to see how we can say add a custom material. So in order to add a custom material, or the material that is not present inside ANSYS Workbench, I can just click on add new material here in the outline of schematic. I just click here, and once I click here, I can just type in whatever name I want. Say for example Rakesh is the material, and once I enter this particular name, it is showing a question mark beside it. So what happens is this particular software is giving us caution that minimum basic properties are not present for this particular material. So what happens, for any type of analysis, the minimum basic properties will be the density, Young's modulus, and the Poisson's ratio of the material. So until you give these three properties, it will not be able to just take away that question mark. And you see, depending on the type of analysis also, this is going to show a question mark. For example, let us say if you are going to do a model analysis, the basic property of density is compulsory, but if you are doing static structural, linear static structural analysis, the density is not compulsory. So based on the type of analysis you are doing, this particular software will show a question mark until we give the, or until we just specify the basic properties. As we have opened the engineering data through static structural, the basic properties we need to specify the Young's modulus and the Poisson's. So in order to specify the different types of properties, you need to go and just go to this toolbox. See here, there is one filter option. So filter engineering data. What happens is, depending on the type of analysis you have selected, this particular toolbox properties will be shown. For example, if you are performing static structural analysis, the properties that are required for that only will be shown. If it is for say if you are doing some dynamic analysis, that particular properties will be shown here. Or otherwise, if I just switch off this filter engineering data, see some more say groups have been added into this toolbox, which makes this toolbox even more messier. For now, I am going to just select this filter engineering data. And right now I need to provide Young's modulus and Poisson's ratio for this material. So I need to get this from the linear elastic toolbox. In the linear elastic toolbox, the material which I have specified is isotropic in nature. Generally there are three natures of material. One is the isotropic nature, orthotropic nature, as well as the anisotropic nature. So here my material is isotropic in nature, so I am going to click and I'm going to just drag it and leave it on this particular material, so that these particular properties will be added here in the properties of outline. And once I added these particular properties, see, I am not going to go for any advanced material models or analysis. So what we are going to do is we are going to ignore this particular group and this particular group as well. So now I need to define the Young's modulus. So you can define the Young's modulus in a number of different units. Say it may be pascals, PSI, MPa, H bar, and other sorts of things. When you see ANSYS APDL, you don't have this much control over the units in which you are going to specify either forces, material properties, and whatsoever. But coming to Workbench, you are going to have a lot of say control over the units in which you are going to specify the properties or forces or loads and other sorts of things. So here if I have this Young's modulus in MPa, I can just select MPa here. Or if I have it in pascals, I can just select in pascals. Likewise, I can select from number of available units, and once I have selected, I can just enter the value. Say, see for example, if I enter the value of 13.33, okay, so it's done. Okay, then fine. Coming to the Poisson's ratio, I need to enter some value. By default, what happens if I just enter say 0.5, sorry, I'm going to just say enter 0.6. So what happens is this particular cell is just highlighted in yellow color. That means what happens is that particular value which you have given, you need to recheck. It is giving you a caution that nowhere the Poisson's ratio is going to exceed 0.5. That is a universal rule. So you need to change that particular property in order to go further. So I'm going to just change it to say 0.3. So now this particular cell has turned into white in color. Likewise, if you want to define the density, you need to go to the physical properties. In the physical properties, you need to say ask for density. You just drag and drop the density here, and then you need to define the density. You can define the density in number of units from which you can select, and then you can just give the value here. So this particular value doesn't have any range, so that is why you can give any number other than 0. But the Poisson's ratio, there is a range at maximum. As a universal rule, the maximum value will be 0.5. So while you are giving a value in excess to 0.5, it is showing an error. So once you have defined all the properties, you see the question mark here has disappeared. And while we are performing simulations, you will be able to use this custom materials, and you will be able to practice how to add new custom materials to already existing materials. So in the next lecture, we are going to see how we can browse the engineering data libraries that are already present inside ANSYS Workbench, and to select materials from pre-existing libraries. Thank you.